Hey there, I'm Meg with Let's Talk About Life with Meg, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the menstrual cycle. In particular, I want to talk to you about a certain phase of the menstrual cycle. If you are a woman and you have a period or you've had a period, it's not probably your most favorite time of the month. If you're like me, you've probably absorbed kind of the cultural idea or belief that the period's really inconvenient and it would be so nice if we actually didn't have it. It forces us to slow down. Sometimes it's painful. For some of us, maybe it's always painful. It's not a great time of the month. I would like to challenge that concept today and say that actually having a period as a woman is a privilege. Why do I think that? Well, I think it's a privilege because it forces us to stop and pay attention to our bodies. It forces us to stop and take care of ourselves in a world that is hell-bent on moving as fast as we can, getting as much done as we can, and sees that as being successful. I think that as women, our period makes us or causes us to pause to rest. And rest is so needed by our bodies, and yet so little available to us today. That's why I think our period can actually be something really good, can teach us a lot about life, about ourselves, the world around us, and can actually be a time to savor. Now, in order to do that, we actually have to care for ourselves. Well, how do we do that in a world that we might have to go to work on the day of our period. We might have to take care of kids on our period. We might have activities that have to be accomplished on the day of our period or the week of our period. So I want to offer some ways to reframe that week, the week of our period, and ways that we can actually find rest and care for ourselves in a busy world. Now, you may have heard of the 4 weeks of the period or the menstrual cycle as seasons, just as nature has seasons. If you haven't, here they are. So we have the winter, which is during the period. That is the actual period. You have the spring, which is following the week following the period. Then you have summer, autumn, the week before the period, and then you again have winter. I want to talk to you a little today about winter in particular, because that's the week you have the period, and also probably the least favorite for all of us. I want you to think of a particular word when you think of our winter or the winter of your menstrual cycle. And this is the word I want you to remember: comfort. This is the week to care for yourself, the week when your body starts speaking loudly and saying, I'm here. I've worked hard for 3 weeks preparing your body for a baby, and then you didn't get pregnant. So guess what? We got to shed this uterine lining that we have built up. So it's going to hurt, and it's not going to be fun because I really wanted to be pregnant. That's what your body's saying. Maybe not what you're saying. Maybe you're like, yay, I'm not pregnant. But either way, your body is shedding. It's doing what it's been created to do. It's shedding that uterine lining that will not be used. Well, because of that, there can be pain, discomfort, bloating, all of those good things. If you look at it as a time when your body's saying, care for me, and you say, of course, gladly I will care for you because you do so much for me, it's going to be a good time or a time to savor, and it's going to be I believe, a much more welcome time than if we look at it with resentment and disgust and dislike because it makes us slow down. So welcome it as a time that's forcing you to stop and rest. As we focus on the word comfort for that week, I also want you to think of things that will promote warmth and nourishment. Think of slow, simple activities and foods, opportunities. It's the time to step back from life and rest. So what can you do to make this a time that's soothing to you and caring for your body? Well, let's talk about food a little bit, okay? So what can we do in the food department to make this a time of comfort and warmth and nourishment? Well, first of all, you're going to want simple foods, right? So think simple, clean foods, not foods that take extensive preparation And I would also recommend maybe making some food ahead of time and sticking it in the freezer, right? So that you don't have to worry about making a lot of food, especially if you have family or other people who are depending on you for food during that week. Prepare ahead. Think simple foods as in like broth-based soups that aren't high in sodium. Cooked vegetables, because cooked vegetables are easier to digest than raw vegetables. Think easy to digest foods, which means you may avoid gluten and dairy. Again, there's no hard and fast rule. You also need to remember this is comforting along with warmth and nourishing. So while you need something that's easy to digest, you also want something that promotes or that brings the word comfort to your mind. So maybe it's a hot chocolate, which is fine, even though it has dairy in it, right? Or maybe you find a way to make it without dairy if you can't have dairy or if dairy seems hard to digest for your body. But again, it's caring for your body. So think simple, slow, warm, nourishing, soothing foods. Let's talk a little bit about activities. Now, one way you can make this a week to enjoy is preparation, as we talked about with food. You can also do that with activities. So maybe, for you, you love to read. I love to read. So this is a time when I don't have a lot of energy. I don't feel great. So the best thing I can do is pull out a book and lie down. Sometimes I can't even pull out a book. Sometimes sometimes I just have to listen to a book. Either way, you can put, find a new audiobook and say, I'm going to save that for the week I have my period or my winter season of my menstrual cycle. Maybe you pick up a book at the library you've been wanting to read. Maybe you see a book online that someone recommended and you think, oh, I'll buy that and I'll put that back. So make it a time of comfort by preparing. Maybe it's a show that you've always been wanting to watch or a friend recommended to you. The only recommendation that I would make would be that you buy or you... That was my cat. The only recommendation that I would make would be make sure that you have something that is easy to read or easy to watch. Think more comedy, light, humorous, not something deep and thought-provoking. This is not the time to get into deep, thought-provoking conversations or activities. Maybe you color. Coloring is very simple. It's not extensive. You can easily just sit there and do that. And another activity that's very simple is, I apologize, you're gonna hear my cat in the background because he thinks he needs to be part of this process. Another thing is cuddling. We know that by cuddling and hugging, you release all kinds of good endorphins. And that was my cat again, stealing the show. You release all kinds of good endorphins, and endorphins help to fight pain. And remember, this is a time that you're having pain or you're not feeling so great. So cuddle with your little ones. This is a great time just to cuddle, or with your partner, to release some of those endorphins and hopefully ease some of your pain if you're having pain or just even discomfort. Remember, it's not a time to do extensive focused work. So maybe not the best time to pull out that new cross-stitching, extensive, deep, intent cross-stitching activity. That would probably be better during your summer or your springtime. This is winter. Let's just rest and not make it difficult. Let's talk a little bit about movement and exercise. What can you do to promote movement and exercise while at the same time caring for yourself and remembering to be slow and simple? Maybe, we talked about warmth. Maybe it's taking a slow walk in the middle of daytime when the sun is shining. So you get that nice warmth, you're getting some movement, but it's not requiring a lot of energy or a lot of strength. Maybe you can't do that because you work. Okay, so what about some yoga stretches, some yoga movements? Slow, simple. Maybe you dance to a slow, relaxing song that you enjoy. And maybe it's not even really called a dance. Maybe it's just like a sway or a gentle rhythm, but it's movement, right? So you're caring for your body by moving, which it needs, but you're saying, hey, I know you're not feeling well. Let's do this slow and simple. Another thing is clothing. So think warm and nourishing again, comfort, maybe something soft, fuzzy. Maybe your PJs, maybe you wear them all day. Maybe you can make it a PJ day at your house. Maybe you wear oversized sweatshirts, your favorite oversized sweatshirt or sweatpants. Maybe you just stay wrapped in blankets and pillows Again, comfort, warmth, and nourishing. Think loose and comfortable and warm. Maybe you put your towel in the dryer so that when you jump out of the shower or get out of the bath, you have something warm to wrap yourself in. Maybe you put your PJs in before you put them on, your blankets, whatever. Just trying to think of ways to nourish your body with warmth during this time. Let's talk a little bit about conversations and encounters. This is probably not the week to go out and do extensive shopping, because social interaction is always going to drain you a little bit, even if you're an extrovert, okay? So think of ways that you can prepare ahead. Maybe you shop ahead and have that done so that you don't have to go out. You don't plan a lot of parties this week. You try to avoid a lot of extensive social interaction. Maybe you have to work, and so you have to have social encounters, like in my job, right? Where every day I see how many people a day. I don't really have a choice to not see people that day. What can I do? I can still care for myself by limiting my conversation. People love to be listened to. Great time for me to learn to listen better by not having to offer a lot of things, a lot of words. I can listen and, still do my job and yet not be extending myself extensively. So think not the time for conflict, okay? So if there's a conflict that arises, if possible, delay it till your next week when you're in your spring. Not always possible, but as much as possible, delay it. It's not the time to have deep heart, thought-provoking conversations, heartfelt, thought-provoking conversations. Maybe you are an extrovert. Maybe you get filled up by speaking to other people. That's fine. Call a really close friend. Try to keep your conversations within people that you can safely say, hey, you know what? I'm really tired. I'm in my winter. Can we just end this conversation? Again, maybe very different than you're used to, but also think how relieving it would be to be able to have that freedom to say, hey, I don't want to talk right now. And that's okay. Maybe limit responding to texts. You don't have to respond to everything right now. It can wait 24 hours, unless, of course, it's emergency. But in general, you can wait. That person doesn't need to be responded to today, or it doesn't need to be responded to promptly within the moment. Again, not any deep conversations, not a lot of conflict. Try to avoid that. If you do have to work, because guess what? Life happens. I can hear you all saying, hey, that would be fabulous to do that, but I have a job that I work 5 days a week. My period's going to come during that time. I have kids to take care of. You can't just stick the kids in the closet and be done. Yes, you could, but I do not recommend that. Well, here's the thing with that though, okay? It's not that you have to change your whole life. I mean, that would be ideal. I think it would be a delightful world where we do recognize women's periods and honor them by giving time off for that. But it's probably not going to happen for a long time. So how can you care for yourself? You can still do all of these things by paying attention to your body and limiting activity as much as possible. So as I mentioned before, going to work, but not having to speak a lot, just listen to the people. Find ways to not take on tasks that require a lot of energy. And if you do, learn to flow with it. Again, literally. Learn to flow with it and say, how can I care for myself in this moment? You don't have to change your whole life, but how can I care for myself in that moment? Maybe it means taking a full lunch break when you normally don't. Maybe it means not doing the extra activities at work that you would normally do. Maybe it simply means telling your child that, hey, I can't go out and play with you right now because mom is caring for her body. So the brilliant thing about this is that we know that how we care for ourselves, how we take care of our bodies, we model that for others around us. So it may be some uncomfortable conversations. It may mean that you just don't even have to say you have your period, but that you're not up for this high energy job, or you're not up to go out for drinks after work that night because you just are taking care of your own body. But as you begin to model that, guess what? Your kids pick up on that, the people around you pick up on that, and then they're not only, you're not only learning to care for your body, but so are they also learning to care for their bodies. Your kids grow up with you doing that, they're going to believe that's the normal, and they're going to start doing that just as a normal way of life. So my challenge is for you to reframe the winter week of your menstrual cycle. Look at it as a time to slow down, a welcome to pause the busyness of life, and to savor your body, to savor, to care for yourself, to rest and just let your body speak and listen to it and take care of yourself and provide warmth and nourishment. So I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you for listening to me.